of different people about short-term rentals, primarily Airbnbs, and I had people on both sides. In some cases, I had people that were originally going to support me and then found out that I had some concerns about short-term rentals and decided that they weren't going to support me. And my goal entirely is just to explore this issue. This workshop is not a forum for us to put forth any regulation. The News Journal did a story on it. I think the Channel 3 is doing a story on it as well. And interestingly enough, the article that was written by the News Journal put in some things that I never talked to them about, some regulation that I had never mentioned to the reporter. But for me, my concern is that I have at least one Airbnb within my district that has been a challenge, let's say that, for some of the neighbors, and for some of the same things that were talked about tonight. And I've spoken with the mayor about this issue too, and I feel that we don't need to take away people's personal property rights. I think that we need to do our best to make sure that you have the ability to make income from properties. But I think there is at least a concern from there's three issues primarily for me. One is, I know, and the number's been mentioned, about 2,400 or something, but within the city limits, there's about 1,200, 1,260, somewhere in there. We got that through we use a company called Granicus, and they bought a company that used to track all of the short-term rentals, and so now Granicus tracks all of them. And they have 3 different ways to do it, and so their data is pretty accurate. And so I was a little bit shocked by 1,260, and it's grown exponentially over the past, probably since 2016. We've gotten a lot more. We don't really know exactly how many. That was the number I was given from Granicus, and then I went to visit Pensacola, and I was told that sounds about right. They only track like their whole area, like the whole county. They don't track by city, and they said they could do that, but I said I don't want it to cost any extra money, so don't do that, because I think we already have the numbers. I know we have somewhere around 1,200. I kind of see this as a business, and I know that some of the regulations out there look at having a business license, or a business tax receipt, and some of them go far beyond that and have a pretty big fee that they charge short-term rental owners for each short-term rental. Now, that was never really my goal. I looked at a lot of different regulations out there. I know that I spoke with, as I said, Visit Pensacola and their director, and talked about other places that have a lot of short-term rentals, and it has really impacted their area. I don't see it as huge of an impact in the city of Pensacola. I think the beach has a much bigger prevalence, I think, of short-term rentals than we do, and they probably always will. But I don't think being able to track where the short-term rentals is a stretch. So I would tend to favor, if regulation came forward, would be a business tax receipt, so we would know, because I think it's a business. It was mentioned earlier as far as the taxes that are paid. Don, didn't you track that the sales tax is taken out through Airbnb, but not the bed tax?
As I understand it, the sales tax is taken out by Airbnb, and it's the owner responsibility to pay the bed tax.
The bed tax, okay. So I want to ensure that the owners are paying the bed tax. And while I think that there's a lot of people here that manage properties and probably do a great job of it, there are some, like the property in my district, that the people that own it don't live anywhere near here and are very hard to reach. So whereas I think we do have some great short-term rentals, I think most of them are great. There are some in my district that are phenomenal, and the people have no problem with them. They always have good tenants, they take care of the yard, they do everything right. So, and I'm not trying to make villains out of short-term rentals. I think that's kind of what a lot of people think, and I'm not. The homestead exemption, I know that was mentioned, the homesteaded properties that are used for Airbnb, especially if you don't live there at all, should not be a homestead property. I want to make sure that the properties are not homesteaded if they're being used as Airbnbs. So those are the three areas that I look at. I am concerned about safety. I'm concerned about properties being safe for renters. I mean, can I let Charlie? Sorry.
All right, I just wanted to bring to the attention of the council that there is a bill, Senate Bill, Senate Bill, I think it's 2023, and it's been referred to the Rules and Commerce Committees, but this seeks to amend the exemption to provide that a vacation rental owner or short-term rental operator designate or maintain at all times within the local government the name and contact information of a responsible party who is capable of responding to complaints and other immediate problems relating to the rental. So that's a bill that, you know, may get passed. And
Okay.
so that would be, you know, I think everyone here would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the other, in doing some research, I found a case from, it's the town of Redington Shores. Anyway, they passed an ordinance that short-term rental operators and owners had to give a written notice to the rental, to the person renting the property of laws and ordinances which they have to comply with. So at least the renter is on notice of trash and parking and noise ordinances that they have to comply with. So that was upheld by the court.
Okay.
I know Councilman Moore sat on the Tourism Development Council with me in the past, and one of the things that I remember learning on that is that the county, and which I guess technically isn't our problem, but they've got several people that's one of their primary jobs is just to go online and look at Airbnb and VRBO and all the other sites and try to find units that are new that maybe aren't registered, or there's no registration, but maybe aren't submitting the taxes and trying to collect that. And again, I do think, you know, that some type of registration, even if it's a free registration, is something that could help us to just to know where they are, and it's going to help us collect the data too. So we could say if we are getting a lot of code enforcement calls to these certain addresses, are they registered as a short-term rental or not? And that's where I was going with that. But I do think it's important to define those first.
Room, I think that probably, and like it was said earlier, you all aren't the issue. It's the people that aren't here, the people that may not be following the rules, may not be available if there's an issue at that house. So those are the things I'm looking at. And I before we take steps, I think, to do regulation that would involve code enforcement complaints, I really think we probably need to have more data. But unless we know where these areas, unless we know where all the rentals are, it's really hard to track that data. So there are some challenges I think we have ahead of us.